All right, welcome to another episode of Vineyard Politico. Have some news coming up about some HOA business, and I wanted to invite two Vineyardites into the recording and kind of get their take on some of the HOA problems and issues that are facing Vineyard. Chase, why don't you introduce yourself? How long have you lived in Vineyard? Tell us about yourself.
So I lived in Lakefront since it was like developed. I was like one of the first townhouses here. So almost 3 years. And let's see, the board recently got switched from the developer. So Fred and I just got involved in some local politics, like specifically like with parking. And that kind of led us to, hey, why don't we just become on the HOA board? And so we've been doing that for like 6 months now. But other than that, I'm a firefighter paramedic here in Utah County, and I'm just going to grad school right now to get more education, living the dream.
Well, awesome. I'm excited to get to know the issue a little bit better, especially for all those that don't, a lot of Vineyard, the old side doesn't get to attend HOA meetings and really understand the issue. And it's just really blown up in the last month or two. Fred, do an introduction.
I'm Fred Vanderwerf. I've lived in Vineyard since 2017, but my wife and I bought a townhome in Lakefront in April of 2021. So we've lived there ever since. So we moved in a little bit after Chase did. Kind of like as Chase was mentioning, I joined the board when they turned the HOA over to us in September of last year, and just trying to understand the issues that our association is dealing with, especially as it relates to parking. We've naturally had to engage with the city. As far as what I do, I am an instructional designer as well as an economist. So I develop a lot of e-learning for a company here in Utah Valley, and I also write a lot of economic research reports and teach about the stock market.
Oh, awesome. So I got to be honest with you. The only reason why I know this problem is because I continually run into friends that know me from Vineyard, and they will say, I moved out and I'm never coming back. And I was really taken aback on it. And just when it happened 3 or 4 times, I started to kind of plug in and go, wait a second, how does that happen? And then I saw a few Facebook posts on it. So what's going on? I mean, describe to me Lakefront, like if you could, in a few issues. Why is it so hot button, and what happened? And let's just go from there.
Chase, you want me to, or do you want to?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So our HOA has, between townhomes and condos, it's all relatively high density housing. We have a grand total of 690 units between condos and townhomes. There's about 250 townhomes and about 440 condos total.
Wow.
We have edge homes built out, 366 overflow parking spots, and there were also some parallel parking spots for overflow purposes marked on the private streets in our development. 300 West and the end of the western end of Vineyard Loop Road all run directly into our community. The city, or excuse me, Edge Homes had originally built out some parallel parking spots on that road that were, as we understand it, intended to be made available for lakefront homeowners. But for one reason and another have been turned over to the city prior to our taking the handover to us as the HOA board. We obviously have a lot of renters and a lot of people with a lot of cars, and so parking has been a problem since pretty much day one. We began engaging with the city almost immediately after the handover to try to try to find ways to address some of the concerns. They made it clear until we began to try to enforce some of our own basic rules that were in our RCCNRs about parking, that they would not help us. They would not engage in any further discussions. So this month we have put in place a new parking policy that included sending out a single parking permit to every homeowner in Lakefront, whether it was a townhome or a condo. And as a result of that, we were able to get an agenda item put on for tonight's city council meeting to talk about a shared parking arrangement on 300 West and Vineyard Loop Road. Our hope was very simple, and our request was very simple. We wanted to be able to use our overnight parking permit to allow residents to park overnight, not permanently, not long-term, but simply on an overnight basis on Vineyard Loop Road and on 300 West.
Wow. So if I understand, you guys weren't here when this was planned. So, I mean, obviously the city was first. They set the zoning and say, okay, this is what it is. And then the developer gets it approved to be able to go through and do that. And then after it's built, it gets just turned over to you guys in terms of, is this enough or isn't it? And then finally it was just exploded like, this is not working. Is that kind of what, like, there's just no way. And then that's where, you know, the people are throwing dog poop at each other and fighting and parking at the track station and just kind of the chaos of, you know, the fighting or whatnot. Chase, is that kind of what you've seen or what's kind of the problem?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to get a straight answer. You know, we showed in this like kind of closed door board meeting we had with the city, we showed them their own city ordinance. I think it's like 15.38 that talks about how for off-street parking, there's supposed to be 3 parking spaces for 3 bedrooms. And it goes, if there's 2 bedrooms, there's 2 parking spaces. So we were told in that meeting that that's a new ordinance. And so, you know, the plans with the developer were already in motion and, you know, hey, sorry, what's done is done. Tonight in a meeting, another resident brought that up and their new answer was that it was actually back in 2015 that zoning was adopted, but basically they have a loophole where they can zone things differently because we're like a high density type of thing. So I don't know whose fault it is. You know, some people pointed out, you know, the city is the one that approves the developer to do this. And I think there is some merit to point out that the city gets more property taxes for approving more high density. And so, you know, that's just kind of been an issue. And so it's been a battle, like Fred said, like 6 months ago, like that's when I first went to a city council meeting, not even on the board, and saying, hey, why are these designated parking stalls like off 300 West, like left empty at night? And it's just been a battle. I mean, every time we do private meetings or talking to them at city council, it's kind of deflected. Like Fred said, like we were blamed as the HOA for not having strict enough rules. They blamed our neighbors for parking, you know, in our parking spots, and a lot of blame going around, and it was definitely our fault. So, well, definitely told us it was our fault. So, but we played along with them, and they said, if you do a parking permit system, we'll talk about the shared parking agreement is what they're calling it now. And so that's where we as the HOA said, okay, if that's what you want, that's what we're going to do. And tonight's meeting was that return and report, you know, is, hey, here's the rules that we have enacted. Here's the permit. And kind of like what Fred was saying about the insufficient parking, they approved 420 condos, 3-bedroom condos, but only 2 parking stalls. And so in my mind, there's a deficit of 420 parking stalls that were never built. The other
420.
Well, yeah, if you just, there's 420 units,
Wow.
3 bedrooms,
But it's
only
not like
to-
30.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so what they have been doing is the big community. And like Fred said, we have like 340 stalls
right.
that even if all of the townhouses, like they were taken away from the townhouses, it still doesn't cover all the condos. And so tonight, which was awesome, is the residents were like, hey, like college girls, because we're right by UVU and BYU. And so it's high density too, condos. So there is a large number of renters and college kids. And I've tried telling them, hey, people are wandering the streets at night because just mathematically, there's insufficient parking, regardless of how
So
many rules we have.
is that why everyone's parked? I mean, I see overnight at the track station, yet nobody
Yeah.
uses tracks. Is that why, is that like,
Multiple people have gone to city council, including tonight, and confessed. My roommate, will go park at Front Runner and we'll just shuttle back. I don't know if you saw on the Vineyard page down by Freedom Academy, they started booting down there because people from Lakefront, which there's just no parking, they'll park up to like a mile away into all these other neighborhoods. So you'll see a lot of these other communities that aren't single family, but are very close to the high density. They've enacted permits because they don't want all these college kids parking over there. And rightly so. That's kind of what we propose to the city is this benefits everyone if you just allow us to park in these empty parking spots. It doesn't cost the city a dime. The HOA will pay for new signage. And so it really, as one of the city council members even admitted, like it's asinine that they're not doing it, but for 5 months,
my
they
issue
continue
is
to
like,
not.
I heard about the council meeting today and there were some fireworks going on, about the young women walking from like forever away. Like, that's
Yeah.
just like, I
It's
wasn't
not
there.
okay.
Is that what happened? I mean,
Yeah, we had multiple, I mean, as a HOA, people have come up to us and have commented on it. I live on the corner, so my windows point out to the streets and I see young women walking around late at night. And I'm like, man, this is like, as a paramedic, I've been on these calls of sexual assault, all these things. And I even went and did the research because I got my undergraduate in public health. So I was like, you know what, I'm kind of curious. And the state of Utah has above the national average for sexual assault. And so, I mean, we've all heard of those, the Provo, the rapist or something. Like it's a reality, even though we're in Utah, like it's just dangerous. And that's kind of what woke me up to getting in this fight is because as a man, like I can walk around, I'm fine. But that's, I think, given my like background with my career as a paramedic and seeing people's lives be devastated, that's really what got me into this whole fight. Was it makes no sense why people, especially young college girls, can't park right in front of their house and just quickly and safely get into. So I think they're like willfully endangering us as residents. And it really rubs me the wrong way, honestly. And I think there's been some like accusing us of, oh, we're using that as just more excuse to get more parking. But I mean, technically, like me at the townhouse, I don't need more parking. I have 4 bedrooms and I have 4 like parking spots in my house. But I don't know, it just is. I think a lot of us, Fred, us at the HOA, we're advocates for each other. And as much as the city tries to turn us all against each other or try to say, hey, there's really bad people out there that are over occupying, I think Vineyard is a great community full of good people. And we're just tired of being villainized and, being punished for things that it just doesn't make sense to me. It's honestly, don't understand why the city doesn't help us out. So,
well, one thing that points out, during Christmas, I ran into a few people that said that, and that's why I threw up that poll on the Vineyard Facebook page, which was how many people cannot spend the holiday in Vineyard, like family, city, USA, in our homes, 25% of the residents said they had to leave Vineyard because they could not have enough parking to have visitors or family over during the holidays. And that infuriated me. I was like, holy cow. And you think about low income people that are struggling, paying the bills, and to say they can't have a holiday within the city, or that they can't invite. My other problem is like, you know, life happens. Mother-in-law gets sick, a friend loses a job, and they've got to come in and bunk up for a month. I mean, we call these low-income housing. Yet from what I'm hearing, there's no planning. Like if life happens, which we all know it does, where do these, like, hey, this isn't allowed. We didn't plan for grandma to get sick and have to stay because, you know, is that the plan?
Yeah.
No plan.
In one of the meetings, one of the first meetings I attended with Chase and other members of the board, Chase brought up the city ordinance he already referred to, I think 15.38, about the number of spaces that were supposed to be allocated to based on the number of rooms for these residences. They immediately countered with a updated ordinance that indicated that they only needed to meet the requirement. I think, Chase, correct me if I'm remembering wrong, but it was 0.5 overflow spots per unit in high density areas like ours. Well, technically they meet that requirement in Lakefront because we have right around half as many of these overflow overnight parking spots that were built by Edge compared to the number of units we have. So they're in effect making up the rules for each development as they go.
Yeah, and that's what it feels like. Okay, this is the plan, this is the policy, what, for the past 6 months? And then you go to the next one and it just changes. My other issue though is just second-class citizens of like, every single council member lives in a non-HOA location. Every single council member can park on the street in front of their home. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but Julie, when she moved into her Sleepy Ridge development, abolished and disbanded her HOA. Like she was the lead person that got rid of it so that they could do whatever they wanted and have the freedom. And to have it now, have her lead the champion or cause, that's just crazy to me. For Vineyard residents that, I mean, the vast majority of voters are on the south side that don't even see or understand the world that you guys are living in. And it's just to see this young college group. What would you say to them before we end? Just kind of helping them understand the issue.
I mean, I just think, yeah, parking is always going to be an issue in college towns and stuff. I think what we are fighting for as the HOA is that just for people to, the law abiding people, that's the thing is, yes, there's bad people out there and people maybe on the south side think, hey, those college kids are breaking all these rules and stuff. It's not set up now for law abiding people. Like you talked about, like, who is it built for? If a husband and a wife move into these condos, like, and if you have more than 2 kids or your kids become high school age, like, you have to move out because there's just not enough parking. And so I would say our goal as the HOA is to make Vineyard actually livable. And I think having a parking stall or just the American freedom of parking in front of your house is a privilege that everyone else in Vineyard enjoys, and they may not realize how dangerous or how harmful it is, and how they're pushing out, I would say, honestly, families that as soon as your kid grows up or you have more than 2 cars, you have to move away from Vineyard. And so if they don't fix the parking issue, it's going to continue to, I would say, you would see worse residents moving in here, you know, those that that aren't families or something. I mean, that's kind of the goal, in my opinion, is let's make Vineyard like family friendly. And so that's, as Fred talked about, like, there's a shortage of 400 parking stalls if city council followed their own municipal codes. But that's our goal. I mean, the HOA, we're trying to fight to like build more parking and stuff, but I just wish that Vineyard City Council and Julie would just show a little bit more like grace and compassion towards us. I know they say a lot. Like when I initially met Julie, like I was like, okay, they say great things. And so I think that's something that some people may be confused is, well, they sound so nice and they're very well scripted, very political. But at the end of the day, I think you have to judge people off of their actions and what they do. And their past actions have been very not family friendly. They are pushing a bike city, and they're basically forcing people not to have cars is kind of their idea, is that it forces less people to live here. But yeah, I don't know. I just hope if more families is what you want to see in Vineyard, then let's make it so families can actually live here, even in the high density places.
Fred, any closing comment?
Yeah, I would just add to that. If you choose to live in a high density area, as we have, I think you should go in with the understanding that you're not going to be able to do whatever you want as in some of these other single home neighborhoods. I think that's only a reasonable statement to make. But there is also a common sense element of this, and I echo what Chase is saying. I mean, in terms of just kind of trying to make this area family friendly, even in a high density environment, there are some common sense steps that I think can be taken to try to ensure that that's possible, even in areas like ours. And we seem to be getting more roadblocks put in front of us, more ways to delay any real actions on getting this done than we are actually seeing progress.
Well, I commend you guys for putting in the permit system and getting your house in order and saying, hey, look, we understand what lives in our home, but at the same rate, this was built not up to the standard of what we can live in, and so as HOA board, that's pretty amazing. But I'm scared about the future. If you look at the plan, everything north of you has extremely less parking. I mean, it is coming down, and that's why I wanted to interview to help you understand, like, what is it like to not be there when the development is planned, have the developer build it, and then turn it over to you and say, hey, take it, and then get into it and say, wow, how do you live here, and have that revolving door of everyone just exiting the city. So anyway, voters, Vineyard, Politico, hopefully this has helped you to understand brief. Thanks, Fred. Thanks, Chase, for coming in and helping us understand it a little bit more.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.